Okay, welcome back. So today I'm going to cover tile maps from platforming and the top-down perspective, right? And we did a little bit of this last week, but I'll show you again. So we're here in the GitHub repository. I'm opening up the examples. I have modules, 2D, and then I have this sort of, let's look at the platformer tile map project. This might be a mess from last week, but that's okay. We can kind of use it as a refresher, right? Does anybody have questions about tile maps? I see a lot of tile maps out there. Are you guys finding the tile map clear?
When I was doing it on my computer, it kept making me use, well, I guess it was saying like tile map wasn't working. I had to use layered.
Yeah. So there is the node that you want now is tile map layer. There is another node called tile map. It's kind of confusing, but basically the tile map itself is deprecated. So it still works. You can totally use it, but this tile map layer is a sort of newer node that is replacing tile map. So they're just going to stop adding features to tile map, and they'll continue to update this one in the future. So it's recommended that you switch, and they basically function exactly the same way. What's nice about tile map layer is that you can just create multiple of them very easily and then use them as layers. So that's the main distinction between tile map and tile map layer. Does anybody else have any questions about tile maps? Does everybody remember how to create a tile map? Right, so the first thing we need to do if we have just a blank tile map is we need to create a tile set, right? So you go to tile set and you just do new tile set. Now because I just had a tile set here and deleted it, this is sort of like warning me that there's a bunch of missing tiles. That's fine, I'm just gonna erase all of them. You can always equip the eraser by clicking on the little eraser, and then you can use the shape tool to erase in a certain shape. So I just erased a square. You can also just like erase in a line or like freehand. You can kind of do all that. So in order to create a tile set, right, there's the tile map and the tile set. And you can think of the tile set as the like source of all possible tiles, like a deck of cards, and the tile map is like how you lay them out onto the board, right? So first we need to build our deck of all possible tiles. So I'll just go and click plus, and I'll click Atlas, and then I'll go into an assets folder and I will grab my terrain, right? And again, tile maps can be anything so long as they are evenly spaced out. Typically they're 16 by 16. But I think there's also, yeah, there's this tile set, which I'll also show you. I lied, I'm gonna use the other tile set because this is a platformer demo. So I'm gonna use this, oh my gosh, I'm go up, this tile set, open it up, and then Gato is smart enough to cut it up into roughly the right size, particularly if it's either 16 or 32. So I'm gonna hit yes, and we have all these tiles, right? And so now I have these tiles in this tile set, that's pretty good. And if I were to just wanna paint them onto the map, all I need to do now is just click them, and unclick the eraser, and then I can just kind of draw tiles, right? And I see that a lot of you have been able to do this, right? However, now if I were to run this scene, something happens. I fall right through them, right? Does anybody remember why I would fall through these tiles that I just drew on the screen? They don't have collisions, right? And how do I add collision data to tile sets? Yeah, that's exactly right. So first we got to add a physics layer to the tile set. You can do that by clicking on the resource itself, and then going to tile physics layers and adding a physics layer, right? So we've created a physics layer. Then now you can paint on properties onto these tiles, and basically you can paint on a collision shape to each of these tiles. So this is the default collision shape I'm going to paint onto these tiles, and so now I can just paint on this shape. You can make custom collision shapes for your tiles, which are really good for things like, for instance, for like this platform here, right? These are sort of floating platforms. I don't want these to just be this entire box. It would be nice to be able to like walk under this box. So if you want to adjust any specific collision shape, you can go over here and drag these points around, right? And so now this box will have like a collision shape right here around it. and I can just sort of paint that on and paint that on and paint that on, and I'll paint it onto all of these little platforms, right? You can add as many points as you want. Like you can sort of add new points to make like a weird collision shape if you want, but you typically don't need to. And I want to delete that. Okay. So once you've painted on your collisions, you should be good to go. Right now you can sort of run this scene. And there we go. I fell and I'm landing on the platform. And I'll just show you briefly too, if I were to, oh my God, I'm always doing, I don't want to start listening. Go away. How do I stop? Okay, great. If you click on tile map, and I'm just going to add these platforms to show you what it looks like. You can also, right, you can click multiple tiles, and then when you go to paint, it'll paint out that whole selection, which is kind of nice. You can also always rotate selections. So if you rotate, you can make like sideways tiles or whatever. Or you can invert them. You can sort of flip them left and right or up and down, okay? But you'll see now with these tiles in particular, like, right, I can go right under this because we added the collision shape that's specifically like just the size of this platform. Does that make sense? So that's how you make a tile set with collisions. And that's pretty much all you need to do in order to start building levels, right?
Professor, how
yeah.
can I delete the effective layer on the tile map?
Sorry?
How can I delete the physics layer?
How can you delete a physics layer? If you don't want a whole physics layer, if you need to get rid of the entire physics layer, what you can do is just go over to here, the physics layer, and hit this trash can. But you might not, if you have some collisions that you like, you might just prefer to delete the collision shape off of the tile, for instance, which you can do by like just deleting those, and then when you click and paint on it, it'll remove it, right? This is basically the shape that you're painting onto the layer, and then when you click on this tile, you're sort of painting that shape in. So that's how you can remove specific shapes, but then if you really want to delete the whole layer, just do this, and it'll get rid of everything. Right, and you'll see now I don't have any collision shapes. I'm going to bring that back because I liked having collision shapes. Great, okay. But let's talk about an overhead demo, right? So to do an overhead demo, because I'm seeing a lot of sort of overhead games, I'm going to go ahead and grab a different asset pack. I'm going to do, let's see, I'll go to itch.io. I will go to Assets. I'll click Free, Tile Set, Tile Map. Yeah, this one looks kind of cute. I'm going to get this top-down basics tile map. So this is kind of like for a Stardew Valley style game, right? So I'm just going to download these assets. And again, if you want to make your own assets, does anybody have questions about how to make your own assets? You just use any sort of standard photo editing software. You can use Figma, you can use Photoshop, you can use KidPix, you can use anything really. These just come as PNGs, and typically they are just PNGs that all have tiles in a certain size, right? These tiles, I believe, are probably 16 by 16 pixels each. So you just would put your different tiles in those different pixels. So I'm going to take this folder, and I'm going to drag it into Gato. Now we have a new tile set. I'm going to create a new scene called, I'll call this top-down tile map. Again, this is kind of the Stardew Valley style perspective. So I'm just going to create a new tile map layer. I'm going to create a new tile set. Then I'm going to click on the tile set. Before I forget, I'm just going to add a physics layer. Then inside tile set, I'm going to hit plus Atlas, and I'm going to start finding these assets. So here's the folder, here's the texture folder, and we've got all of these fun little tiles to play with. So I'll just bring in this grass first. And it looks like these are roughly the right size, so I'm going to say yes. And there we go. We have all of these tiles kind of quickly created. So you could very easily just start painting, right? I could just sort of take these and maybe like do a rectangle, and let's just start making a level real quick. So I'll start painting a level, just kind of like that. Whee! And that's like not the worst set of grass ever, but I don't know, let's get bigger. Let's just get the whole camera probably. That's good. Then I'll do like a little path, just for fun. So I'll use the freehand tool for this, and I'll just kind of go whee! Right, I'll rotate. And I'll actually only select one now so that I can be a little bit more artistically expressive with my path. Whatever, you get to just sort of draw whatever you want, right? This is the easy part. But this isn't sort of the whole picture, right? This is like a nice thing, but a lot of sort of 2D tile sets have like ledges, staircases, right? Objects that you want to sort of be able to set up as things that you run into, right? This is just a pretty nice, you would want to use this sort of grass area, probably mainly as space that a character would walk over freely, so you wouldn't need to give any sort of collision shapes to it. As a matter of fact, do we have, all right, we don't have like a character in here. I'm gonna go to this, let's see, we have the top-down demo. I'm gonna grab the player and the assets and the character body 2D script. So I'm just grabbing this code from another demo. I'm gonna paste it in here. I'm gonna merge those folders and hope for the best. Then I'm just gonna drag the player in. Yeah, and we'll see if this works. So now I'm gonna run this scene. Okay, so we have this character, right? We're moving it around. We're kind of walking around the world, right? So this is a pretty decent little like level, but there's no collisions, right? It's cute, right? Do you have any questions about this particular character, like how it's working? What are your questions? How to make it work? Well, which part? So what part are you trying to get working? The like animations or the movement or?
So like our question right now is we have the idling PNG and
Yeah.
PNG on different files, and so the motion
Yeah.
inside is like 2 parts.
It's in 2 separate files?
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of want it in one file. So for instance, right, in this example, we have one animated sprite. So you only really need one animated sprite. And this animated sprite has multiple animations, right? It has a walking down animation, which is just a couple of frames, a walking left animation. But what I've done is I've attached all of these animations to this one animated sprite. And then in code, all you do is you say like, you know, if you're walking to the right, play the walking right animation, right? Otherwise, if you're walking to the left, play the walking left animation. Otherwise, don't walk anywhere, right? And then if you're pressing up, play the up animation. If you're pressing down, play the down animation. Otherwise, don't walk. And then if you're not moving anywhere, play the idle animation. Does that make a little bit of sense? Yeah. Yeah, feel free to take pictures. I'm also streaming this right now too, so you should be able to find this in the video. And I'll put this code up on GitHub, right? But the most sort of interesting thing here, right, is like the script for this node is attached to here, and we're talking to this animated sprite. So we're using this node to talk to this other node and tell it to do something. And the way we do that is we use this $. When we say $ name of node, that's saying like, let's get that node, and then let's like interact, let's use a function that node has, right? So if I maybe wanted to like zoom out the camera, for instance, I could say camera.2d.zoom, and the zoom I believe is a vector 2, probably, whatever. Yeah, so if I could say camera.zoom.x minus equals 0.1, yeah, and so then now when I run the scene, during the process loop, during the process function, we're talking to the camera and we're telling it to do something. And so now the camera is zooming out horrifically in a terrifying way. But the point is right, this is the syntax that you use for communicating with other nodes. So that's how that character works. Do you have any other questions about how this particular character works? No? Good? Okay, cool. Questions are always appreciated. Questions are great. There's no bad questions. The only bad question is the one you didn't ask. Right, so this is a decent grass layer, but maybe we want like another layer on top of this stuff to act as like our collisions, right? And so this is a nice case for why we want to use the tile map layer instead, because all you need to do is like duplicate the layer, and I'll call this one like objects, right? And then I'm also just going to delete everything on this particular layer, right? Because if we copied it, we probably copied over all the data. So I'm just going to like clear it, right? So now we have a new blank layer, and I'm going to add a new atlas to our tile map. And I will add these, let's see, I don't know, maybe like, I'll add these structures. No, I'm going to add the walls first. I'll add the walls. And we'll create these walls, right? And so these are all nice wall elements. And these are probably also things that we want to have collisions on, right? You can tell that we're supposed to be able to hit them and not bounce through them, right? So what I'm going to do is hit select. I'm going to hit paint in the physics layer, and then I'm just going to paint on this physics data. So this is pretty good for our basic walls, these full squares. This should be good enough. Just paint it on. Whee! But then for these ones up here, I'm going to do it slightly differently, right? We can tell that these are pretty good. Like this is just going to be a regular shape, but then these are slightly different because this is like what you might use for like a top level, like an upper level that your character could walk around here, but then when they hit this wall, maybe they bounce off of it. So for this one, I'm actually going to, I'll click here and I will add a new point here and a new point here. And that's probably good enough for that one. And then I'll paint that on. For this one, I'm going to just delete. You can always delete points by right-clicking on them. So I'll just do this for this one. And I'll paint these on. This is going to be kind of a pain in the neck. So I'm not going to do this whole thing. I'll do this whole one, but I'm going to skip these other guys. So then for this one, we're going to do it like this. For this one, we're going to do it sort of, can I drag this? I guess I can't. No. Oh, you can make it full screen, I guess, by clicking that. That's kind of fun. All right, whatever. So this particular part is just a little time consuming, right? It's not too difficult. You just sort of have to be patient. There we go. That's good enough. And again, they don't need to be perfect. They just need to be good enough. And then we'll do the final one, which I'll just do kind of like this and like that and like that. And that's great. So now for this layer, I should be able to just go to tile map, and I'll just try painting one whole square of this, right? So I'll select this whole thing, and I'll just go like this. Whee! Oops, that's the eraser. Whee! And there's a square, right? And you can kind of see how that's sort of like a little platform of sorts, right? It's kind of like a an upper level maybe of a wall. I'll also bring in maybe these guys for like a lower level. Right, if you really want to like do this well, obviously what you want to do is spend more time making this look pretty, right? But just by kind of doing stuff like this, basically, here I'll make a wall like that. That's kind of fun. And then I'll run this scene. And you can see right now I can't run into these walls, yeah? And that's important for being able to create obstacles, right? It's important in our games that we collide with things and cannot pass through them because we need to make challenges in our game. Does anybody have any questions about how I made this sort of top-down tile map demo? I'll show you one other thing because a lot of you sort of have decorations in your tile maps. So I'm going to go to the tile set and I'm going to add a new atlas. And I'm going to add these plants. Yeah, I'll add the plants. That's fine. I'll create the plants. And you can, I think the easiest way to make groups is by, let's see, you can kind of like grab all of these basically. How do I make a group again? Maybe it's back here in the tile set. Oops, no. There's some sort of way to group all of these together into one tile, but I'm forgetting how to do it. Select, rendering, miscellaneous physics, okay. Whoa. What happened there? That's kind of interesting. Oh, hold shift, it says it right here. Hold shift to create big tiles. Let's create a big tile. So I'm gonna hold shift and drag. I'm holding shift. I would like to hold shift to create a big tile. Can I do that? Select, shift. What is this? Okay, if anyone wants to learn how to make a big tile, let me know and I'll figure it out more specifically. But you basically can create a large tile and then give it one collision shape. Anybody got questions on this? I'm getting a no, so I'm going to move on. So those are tile maps. They're super helpful for any sort of 2D project. Let's now turn our attention to downloading, to sound. Yeah, I think you all probably want to have some sort of sound in your game. Sound is really fun in Gato. It's very easy. Here's a sound demo right here in the 2D folder. I'm just going to open up the project and show you how it works. You just need a node. And the node is just an audio listener, okay, or an audio stream player. So we have this little example, right? Whee! Whee! So there's music and sound effects, right? The way it works is really straightforward. You just have one node for each of your sound effects or your music, right? So I have a jump sound effect and a music sound effect. And you just give it a stream, and then you set it to autoplay, and then it just kind of works. So I'll just do this again from scratch, right? I'll delete this node. Hello, I'll delete this node. Command backspace, right? So I'm going to add a new node called audio. And you'll see we have a couple different nodes. An audio listener, which you don't really need to concern yourselves with, but it's basically like where you're hearing the music from, which will make a little bit more sense later. Then we have an audio stream player 2D and an audio stream player not 2D. Does anybody have a guess what the difference between the audio stream player 2D and the audio stream player not 2D might be? What's the difference between the gray one and the blue one?
Don't have space.
Yeah.
Don't have space.
Yeah, this one does not have a spatial component. So this is just music playing in your game, sounds playing in your game, not located in space. But the 2D one does have a spatial component. That's really cool if you want to have sound effects that are coming from a specific point in space, like a waterfall or somebody talking, right? Or a door opening. You can attach sound effects to places in space, and then just by how close or far away you are from the camera, Gato will automatically raise or lower the volume. So for the music, that's just going to be in the background, so I'm just going to use a regular audio stream player. Then you just go to the stream, right? And you just need to add a stream. And a stream can really be any sort of sound file. You know, MP3s are great, but you can use all sorts of files. If you want to make the music loop, you actually have to click on the resource itself, double click on it, and then select like the looping feature. You can also change the playback speed, and you can sort of clip it if you want. Then I'm just going to take this music and drag it over to the music property, and then now I have music playing. I don't have music playing. I don't have music playing because I didn't select the autoplay property, right? So I'm just going to click autoplay, and now I have music playing. Yeah. You can change the volume by changing the volume, the decibels, right? It's so loud. Okay. We'll make it -20. So that's pretty good. You can also change the pitch of it too. That's kind of fun. So you could like make it high pitched. Come on. All sorts of stuff. You can mess around a lot. And there's a lot of more advanced audio effects you can do if you're interested, but I'll stop it there. But for the effects, right, the effects are sort of located in space, right? So for instance, if I were to take this, let's like, I'm gonna stop this stream from playing. Stop it. And I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna add a new audio effect, an audio stream player 2D to one of these fruits, right? So I have this fruit over here, I have this audio stream player, and I have this music that I'm gonna have coming from the strawberry, okay? So now, when I run the game, you'll see that as I get closer to the strawberry, it gets sort of louder. And then as I get further away, it gets quieter. That's because the camera is just getting further away from that node. So that's all you have to do to have localized sound. For like the music collecting platformer, or really for any sort of game where you're having sound effects that are local to space, all you have to do is use the audio stream player 2D and then attach your sound effects to that, right? And you'll see it even kind of pans it, right? So you can tell it's like kind of coming from this side. And then if we go this way, it comes from the other side. It's really handy. It's really, really, really handy. In order to play sound effects, that's also really easy. It's exactly the same type of code as playing an animation. So for instance, right here in the character body node, I have the jump function, right? This is just the default template that comes with character body 2D. And I've just added this line, get the jump node, and play the sound effect. So whenever I press space, you just say jump.play. Okay? These fruits are very similar. They just have a collecting sound effect. And they also have an animated sprite. They have an idling animation, and they have a popping animation. And so what happens when you, and they also have an area 2D, right? So this is for people who are trying to collect items, right? What happens is with this fruit is we have this area 2D, and when the fruit code is so simple. When the area is entered by a body, aka by the player, we play the pop animation on this sprite, and we play the collecting sound effect. And then whenever an animation is finished, if it's the popping animation, we delete the fruit. So this is how you delete a node from a scene, is just with the function queueFree. And this code altogether just creates an item which sort of idles. It kind of bounces where it is. When you walk into it, it plays a pop. It makes a popping sound, and then it deletes itself when it's done. Are there any questions about this simple item pattern, or how you could apply it to your own games?
Does the code for the audio have to be in like the same script, or is it separate?
It's the same type of thing as interacting with any node, right? So this code in particular is attached to the animated sprite. But if you want to reference another node and tell it to do something, you just need to say $ and then the name of the node, and then you can tell it to do that. So this audio listener 2D has a play function, right? If you open up the documentation, we'll see that it has this play method, which is how you can use it, right? And in order to tell it to do something, I just say $ collect play, right? So I just am like $collect, and then you can access any of the functions that this node has, and the playing one is just how you tell it to start playing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right, and again, it's the same type of thing for any sort of node. So if this had a timer attached to it, right, you could tell the timer to start by saying $timer, and then like the timer starts by saying start, right? Every node has these different functions that they can do. And to tell other nodes to do it, you just sort of use the $ syntax. And then this is like its path relative to you as a child. So what that means, right? This is the parent and here's the child. so it's right here, right? But if this timer, for some reason, was beneath the audio sound, in order to access that, you would want to say, like, $, and then you can see it right here, right? It's collect/timer start, right? So this is how you reference, like, a grandchild of you. This is how you reference a child of you. Does that make sense? A little bit?
Yeah.
Interacting with other nodes is pretty complicated, but it's one of the more powerful features of Gato, right? Because we have all these different nodes that do different things, and together on their own they don't really do much independently. But it's when you start telling some nodes to tell other nodes to do things, that's when you really start to make more complicated structures. Okay, any questions about sound? How's everybody doing? We're hanging in there? Yeah, hanging in there. Okay, it's tough. There's making games is complicated, and I really applaud you for sticking with it this far. We've got one sort of more complicated thing to do, and this is the last teachy thing I'm going to do today, and then it'll just be working time and debugging, right? But you guys have talked about, like, I just want to show you a couple of patterns that are going to be useful in your games, right? Last week, I showed some of you the pattern for creating a respawn point, like a point that, or I showed some of you how to create like a door that teleports you to another location. I'm going to show you a pattern for creating respawning. So like if you die or you need to start the level over again, it's a very simple way to do that. So you can find this in the, this also includes a very simple like attacking and damage system implementation. So if you are here in this folder, we have respawning and attacking is the project that I'm opening up. So in this particular project, you'll see a couple things right away. You will see that it's just a very simple level with some static body platforms that don't move or do anything. We have a player, and the player is basically it's just the default character body script with a couple of modifications. This is all from the template, but then I just have a little thing inside the process function that checks to see what your health is, and if your health is less than 0, it calls another function, which I made up, called respawn. And this is a really key thing. You can always create your own functions. In order to create your own function, you just write the word func, and then the name of the function that you want to make, and then the code that it does. And then you call it by saying the name of your function with parentheses, right? So in order to create your own function, you just write the name of the function, respawn, and then you say what you want to have happen in that function, okay? And in the respawning function, I'm just going to reset the position of my main character to the respawn point, and I'm going to set the health to maximum, and then I'm going to emit a signal called respawn to tell everybody else that I respawned. Okay, and that's a little bit, you don't need to worry about that, but you can make your own signals as well, which is also another way of sort of telling nodes about things that you're doing. So, so we have this character code, right? It checks to see if its health gets below 0, and then it respawns. And in order to respawn, we just set the position to the respawn point. We set the health to the maximum health. And that's basically all we need to do. The respawn point is just a position. It's just a number, right? And the maximum health is also just a number, right? So that on its own wouldn't really do much unless we have a way to die, right? Currently, we just sort of have this scene where we can walk around. And right, this wouldn't really accomplish anything. But I've also done another common thing, which is I've created what's known as a kill box. So kill boxes are really commonly used in games with edges where you jump off a cliff. Anytime you fall off a cliff in a game and you die, that's because they're using something called a kill box, right? A kill box is just an area that detects when something enters it, and when it enters that thing, it kills it. So in this particular case, this is just a collision shape with an area attached to it. Or sorry, the collision shape is a child of an area 2D. And the area 2D just listens for if a body enters the area, and if it has health, then it's going to set that health to 0, right? And that works because the player is also checking to see if it respawns. If the player's health gets set to 0, then we're going to respawn at our new position. So when we enter the kill box listens for this body entering it. It sets its health to 0. And then the player, if the player's health gets set to 0, respawns. Does that make a little bit of sense? So the way that works when you run it is basically like this, right? You go, wee, you fall and you hit the area and you respawn, right? You don't have to do it this way, right? What's nice about having your own function is you can also just call it whenever you get a reference to that node. And that's what these signals do, is they pass references to the nodes interacting with them. They pass them around. So for instance, this body right here is the player node. If we were to print out player, or if we were to print out the body, you would see, here, I'm just going to comment this out. You would see right here that when we fall into it, right, we print out the node itself. This is the player node. And we can, just like when we call $sign on the node, we can do any function that this node has, right? So we could even just say body.respawn. And now this will accomplish the same thing, right? Or you could just set the position by hand. You could say body.position .y equals negative, 100, and body.position .x equals 0. And this is just going to move this node via code. Right? Does that make a little sense? It's kind of really weird, but what's important to know how this works is this signal, this this area 2D, this is the real magic. The area 2D has all of these built-in signals that tell when certain events happen. And this is telling when a body enters the area 2D, and it's giving you access to that body as an argument of the callback function. So basically the body here is whatever body that enters the area, and then you can do stuff to that body the same way you do stuff to any other nodes. Okay? This might go, that's a lot to sort of chew on, but you've got photos, you've got the code, you've got a video, there's lots of ways to sort of digest this more over time. This might make more sense later. But, there's lots of different applications for this, right? So if you have like a very simple enemy, this is an enemy scene. You can tell it's an enemy because it's red. Oh, I should stop being red biased. Red's a fine color. But right, this is like an enemy. The enemy has a sprite, a collision shape, and an area attached to it as well. And the area is basically, I'm realizing that this is going to be a little complicated. So if you want to know, talk to me during the floating around period. I don't need to go into this in depth. But it basically just checks to see if the player entered the area, and if it did, it sets it so that it's possible to attack. And then if it can attack, then it does a little attacking. It does an attack, and it changes the player's health, right? This is the player, and you can change their health. And so the way this works, if we ran this whole scene, right, we can see that this player is here, and this enemy is here. The enemy hits the player, and it does 1 damage, 2 damage, 3 damage, 4 damage, and 5 damage, and then the player respawns, and the scene gets reset. Okay? And if you're curious about how that works specifically, you can kind of dig into the code. Finally, I will show you another example. Again, another violent example. This is just sort of the history of video games, I guess. But we have this scene with these projectiles. So the way this scene works is we have a player, a healthy player. This player, it's the same template. The player just has a maximum health and a health variable. And if the player's health gets below 0, we call the kill function. And every time the player takes damage, we play a damage animation. Okay? These cannons they launch projectiles. So basically the way this scene looks is, right, we're sort of walking around here. Oh, no, wrong scene, sorry. We're walking around this scene, right? There are these cannons. Every time you get hit by a cannon, you take damage, and then eventually you die and you respawn, okay? I think the important thing to know, the most helpful thing about this is spawning objects. Did I already explain how to create objects in code with you guys? Because these cannons, right, these create new bullets every second, right? If we look at this cannon, it sort of just looks like this. It's these two colored rectangles. And it just launches a bullet every second, right? Which you can't really see because we're way up there. But if we go back to here, hello. Just trust me. I'll move it. I'll move the whole thing. That's fine. Okay, try it again. Right, we have this cannon that shoots this little bullet, right? In order to create a bullet that gets created, we have a separate scene that's called the projectile. And then whenever this timer happens, we create a new instance, and then we attach it as a child to the gun, right? This is a very helpful thing for creating any sort of random generated stuff, is loading in another scene like this, and then instantiating it, creating a new version of it in code, and then adding that version to your current node, right? I think a lot of you might need to do something like this, whether it's with anything that's sort of randomly generated in your game. If you need to create new enemies, or you need to create new coins, or create new anything, right? That's a really good way to do that, is this pattern here of you load in the file, you instantiate it by saying var, name of your variable, and then file.instantiate, and then you say add child, name of your variable. Those are the 3 steps. Okay, I'll show you like a very simple, a different non-violent example. I'll just create a new project real quick. Oh no, I don't want to log out. Do I have one already? Instancing. No, that's going to be bad. Can anybody think of something in their game that they might need to generate in this way? Something random, where they need to like create a lot of something?
Thinking of like having a thing that like shoots fire out every couple seconds.
Okay, yeah.
Like kind of like what you're doing, just instead of bullets, fire.
Yeah, fire's good. I mean, fire, you know, the fire would be slightly different because you could just have one fire scene that turns on and turn off, and that's how I would recommend doing that. But does anybody else need like a lot of something in their game? Like a lot of grass or a lot of coins? Anybody? Because if you don't, I can just skip this. But this is really helpful if you're trying to, if you have anything that's sort of randomly created over time. No? No? Nobody has anything randomly created? Great. All right, then we'll skip it. So if we're not going to do that, then are there any other key patterns or things that you want me to sort of go over quickly? We talked about traps. Do you have a sense of how to make traps now with the sort of idea of a kill box, kind of? Does anybody have any sort of pattern that they're particularly confused about or curious about?
We
Yeah.
have two mechanisms. One of it is break the rook and let the tilemap will be removed and coins inside of its parts.
To break something open and then coins come out? Yeah, so that's a really great example of trying to instance something, right? So if you need something like a box that you open up and stuff falls out, right? Let's do that. I'll create like a box with coins, all right? Oh my God, I can't type. Box with coins, browse, desktop, Class repository, modules, 2D is where I'm going to save it. It's called box with coins. Let's go ahead and make it. So first thing you probably need is like a box, right? That's kind of easy to do. I'm going to create a 2D scene, call it level. I'm going to bring in the character from the other example that we just had. I'll bring in the, let's see, I'll bring in the player and the platform scenes. So I'm just going to bring this in here. This is just to show you. Box with coins, paste. Now we have these, and now we have this, and we have this, right? So now we just have a scene. I can run the scene. Why? It's very interesting. Ah, yeah, okay. Sometimes when you bring in stuff from other projects or if you move things around, you might get this fixed dependencies folder dialog. Oftentimes you can just fix broken and it'll sort of readjust the file paths. That doesn't matter too much, but I think basically by doing all that, we should be good to go. Nope, still kind of busted. Okay, I'm just gonna, let's see. Open the platform scene, that's fine. Open the player scene, that's fine. Save. Close everybody and start over again. No, okay, I'm gonna just quit real quick. We're just trying to make a box with coins. Didn't have to be that hard. Oh my gosh. Why? Okay. Are there any errors? No, there's no errors. This is very mysterious to me. And is not the point. I'm just trying to show you how to make a box with coins. So what I'm going to do is detach the script, because I think that's the problem. I'm going to delete the script. That's fine. Remove it. I'm going to go back and create a new script, attaching it to the player. It's just the template. And I really don't understand what's being done here. Okay, let's just start from scratch. Delete everything. Delete it all. Okay. It's easy, I promise. New level. Character body. Collision shape. Give it a shape. Give it a sprite. Move the sprite back to the origin. Make the sprite a child of the character body. Make the collision shape the size of the character. Save it. Attach a script. Use the built-in template. That's fine. I'm going to make a platform, color direct. Move it down. Make a static body. And a collision shape. Okay. Mondays, am I right? Let me just make the rectangle the same size. please, for the love of God. Okay, great. We have a character we can move around the screen. I don't know why that took forever. I'm sorry about that. But we now have, yes, we're closing this. Go away. Don't save that. Okay, I'm just trying to show you how to make a box that you can open with stuff inside of it, right? In order to do that, we need to have a player and a world so you can walk up to the box and do all that sort of dumb stuff. So let's make this box now, okay? I'm going to make a new scene. I'm going to make this a 2D scene. This box is also just going to look like the player because that doesn't matter for this part. But I'll make it green. Okay. Visibility, modulate, kind of green or whatever. So this is going to be my box. The box is going to take in probably a static body because you don't need to move the box around. And it's going to have a collision shape as well. That's going to be around the same size. Then the box is probably also going to want to have another area. So I'll give it an area. And this is going to be the radius to detect whether or not the player is near it, right? So I'm going to give it another shape, and I'll make this one a circle. Just be nice and big. And I'll move it up a little bit. That's fine. And so this is going to be sort of the force field to tell when the player has entered the area, right? And I'm going to attach a script to the box. And I'm going to attach this signal from this area. I'll call the body entered signal, okay? And I'll just hit connect. And if you just do this, this is actually going to be confused because there already is a body entering this area. It's this static body that is itself, right? It's this other static body. So if we just print this out and run this scene, you'll see that this signal function will trigger automatically, right? It'll trigger right there. See, the static body got entered. So what we want to do is we just want to check to see, is the body that entered the area 2D actually the player? One easy way you can do that is to check to see the name of the node. So I can say body.name. And then I'll hit restart to run it again. And now you'll see it just prints out the name. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little if function here. I'm going to say if the body.name equals player, then we're going to open the box. So I'm going to print open box. Open. I'm going to print open box, right? So now in our little level, I'll just add in this box. And Shift A, box, add it in. I'll put it over here, okay? And so now when we run the level, we'll see that we have this thing. Nothing's, oh shoot. We have this box, right? When I enter it, nothing happens because I didn't actually name this node player. That's my fault, so I'll just name this player. That's one problem with that particular method. But it works. Okay, so now every time I walk towards this box, we open the box. Now we just need to make some stuff come out of it, right? So what sort of things are you imagining comes out of this box? Like coins? Or yeah, okay. So if we want to have coins, right, we can just make a separate scene called a coin scene, right? I'll call this coin. This one's also just going to look like a robot because I'm really not that creative. But it'll be yellow and small. We'll make it yellow and small. So we'll make it 0.2 and we'll make its modulation yellow. And we're going to set its position to 0. Okay. So now we have a coin thing that we can add. But it would be really nice like if this thing like maybe fell or something, right? Do you want your coins to fly or fall or?
Just come on and it can be collected.
Yeah. So an easy way to make things sort of like appear. I mean, so right. So we just have this picture, right? And what I'll say is, I'll also add an area to this coin area, right? and I'll add a collision shape. This is going to be the detection area, right? And I'm going to make it like nice and big. And we're going to use the same signal. Did a body enter the area? We don't have it, and you have to have a script in order to connect a signal to it, right? So I'm going to put a script attached to the coin itself. And then I'm going to say body entered, connect it to the coin. Now we have this body signal, right? And so then I'm just going to delete the coin because it's just like we're collecting it, right? When you collect it, it no longer exists, so we can basically just delete it. So now in our basic level, we also probably just want to check to see if the body is the player in the same way we're checking with the box. So I'm going to take this line from the box code and copy it into the coin code. And I'm just going to indent this. Then inside the level, I can just add in a coin as an example. Okay, so here's our little coin, right? So now when I run the game, does anybody know why this is happening? It's kind of funny. The coin,
Inside of the page.
yeah, it's attached to me, right? So I put it in the wrong place, and so that means it's following my position. So that's a pretty easy fix. Firstly, I'm just going to take this rectangle. Oh my gosh. No. Command Z. Hit this. I'm going to drag it down a little bit. I'm going to take the coin and move it out of the player. And now it should be its own separate entity. Okay. So I have this, and I can run and basically collect the coin, right? And I can open the box. Now we just need to make coins pop out of the box. The easiest way to make coins pop out of the box is, right, open up your coin code, or your box code, and this is the part where we have, sorry, our box code. I'm going to take this box out of the platform. Opening up the box code, and this is this thing that I was just talking about, where we need to instantiate a new scene in this scene, right? So I'm going to take this scene file, the thing that I want to create. I'm holding down Command while I drag it, and when I let go, it does this. It does this really nice sort of shortcut for it. It writes out the word const, and then the name of the variable, and it says preload, and then this file. This is just a shortcut. You can type this out yourself, but it's a very easy shortcut. All you have to do is hold Command while you're dragging something, and it'll create the appropriate sort of syntax for you. So we create this version. This is like holding the file in code, okay? Then what we need to do is we need to create an instance of it. So I'm going to say new coin, var new coin. I'm going to say equals coin dot instantiate. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to change the position of the coin. So maybe I want the coin to appear above the box. So I can say new coin dot position dot y plus or minus equals, like, let's say 20. Okay. And then I can say new coin, or I can say add child new coin. And so this is going to add the coin as a child to the box. And I think this might work. It might not work exactly the way we want it to, but let's see. So we have one coin. We can collect it, and then we go to the box. Okay, so we created a coin. It's not exactly where we want it. It's kind of stuck inside the box. So that's not very good. So let's try making it higher, right? Let's make it like maybe 200 or 40. 80. Say 80. Let's see if this changes anything. Yeah, there's a coin. I can't quite jump high enough to collect it, but you know, you just fix that by making yourself jump a little higher. There you go. So there's a coin that pops out of the box that you can collect. Is that kind of what you're looking for, or do you want something a little bit more, like what are you looking for in this example?
Maybe we need the player when he press E,
Mm-hmm.
and then the box show will be removed or will be broken.
And the coin will just be inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right. So the first thing you could do is so in that case, right, instead of having the detection happen on the box, it kind of makes more sense to have the detection happen with the player, okay? So for instance, what you can do is say, like, you can give the player an area, right? So I'm going to say, like, area, and I'm going to give this area a collision shape. And I'm going to make the collision shape like a circle. And I'll make it nice and big. And this is going to be the area, you know, how close I need to be something in order to interact with it, right? Oftentimes you need to, in games, be close to things in order to interact with them. So this area is going to be the radius, which lets me interact with things. And what I will do is, let's see, because we already have an area here, right? This is an area for the box, kind of detect. So we can kind of rework things to make this a little bit easier, right? Because we don't want to interact with every body that we enter, right? Because we don't want to have to interact with the floor or some other things that we pick up automatically. So maybe we just want to interact with specific areas, right? So what we can do is we can use the area 2D signal called area entered. And this is when an area enters another area. And that's kind of nice because this box is an area and it'll only fire when this area enters this area. So basically it'll tell you when the player is near the box, right? So I'm going to connect this to the player itself. And we'll see it's down here. And so now I'm just, in order to test it out, I'm going to print out like player is near, and then I'll say the area. So now if I save this and run this, right, we get here, and then look, the player is near the area. Okay, so that's kind of good. So we want to kind of get rid of the open box function from the box. So I'm actually going to remove this code. I'll just pause this code for now, comment it out. Why don't we do this? I said we were, well, who's still with me? Are you all still with me on this, or do you need a break? Because I could do this I could do this in person now, or we could take a quick break and I could have the answer for you when you get back from break. Huh? You can use a break? Okay, great. You use a break. I'm going to do this now. If you want to watch me do this, that's fine, but I'm just going to take a minute to try and figure this out.
Will we begin the teamwork?
Sorry?
Will we begin the teamwork after the break?
Yes, yeah, we'll be doing teamwork after the break.
Hi, Professor.
Hey, what's up?
We wanna start so
We want to have a start fishing part, and
Okay.
the question we have right now is if we press F, it will have the first frame of the animation, but it won't play the whole animation.
Okay, so yeah, let's try pressing F, yeah? Can you show me what happens? Got it, yeah. So you're starting F, but then it
Doesn't play the animation.
doesn't show you the whole thing. Yeah, okay. Can you show me your animated sprite? So can you show me the animation? I just want to first make sure that you have a whole fishing animation. So you do have a starting fishing. Yeah, so let's look at the code now. Can you just make this tab go away by clicking on its name? So just click on it the same tab twice. Yeah, and then it goes away. So we have physics process. If you're pressing down, you're moving.
Is it because the idling part is over the fishing part?
It could. I think that might be right. So we're doing this if we are. Else if we're dashing. Else if we're dashing. Dash right. This is very cool. I like this. It's cool that this is all happening. So if you're not moving, we're idling. Right. And you're idling in directions. That's great. Yeah, so I think it's this part, right? For instance, if we just commented this all out. Oops. No, that's my fault. Okay, so if we just comment this all out. Right, so then press F for me. Yeah.
Oh.
So what's happening is, right, the idling is overwriting your fishing. So,
So
what,
make it idling on the bottom, and if not working or fishing.
that would be,
idling.
you could totally do that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's a good way to do that. Yeah. Right, you could also say, like,
Try now. So if you can see, I guess.
what you could also do, right, you have this moving variable, right, you also have is fishing, right? So actually, if you just uncomment, oh, well, okay, yeah, let's
And
see.
we also have
You
an
have-
idle fishing part. So how can we like connect these two together?
And it takes time, right? It kind of takes just sort of sifting through it a little bit. But this is a good start. We have is fishing. So what you could do here is if not moving. All right, so let's bring all this back. Zeke, man. Okay. If not moving, and you can also have multiple conditions together. You can say if not moving and not is fishing, right? So I think this will work because this is getting set to true when you are fishing. So this is checking for both of these. So now we have your idling, and then now you can walk. Cool?
Yeah. So and also that when like after we click F, it will keep playing. The
Yeah, so for that one, that's actually pretty easy. Let's go to the animations themselves. For that, you probably just need to turn this off. This is the looping feature. So that just means it'll only do one time.
And what about the what
Again,
about the
again.
idle fishing?
So what's the idling animation?
We haven't seen. Yeah.
So what you want to have is when you're not moving. Okay, so for that, let's just break this up. So let's make a new line right in here. So this is going to be, because what we want to say, right, if you're not moving, then we want to be idling. And if you're fishing, we want to do the fishing idling. Otherwise, we want to do the regular idling. So we can kind of just do an if statement inside of another if statement. So you can say, if you're not moving, then if you are, let's say we are fishing, if is fishing, right? If we're not moving, and then if we're fishing, then in here is going to be where you put your fishing idle, right? Idle. Else, then, oops. I'm not used to this keyboard. The colon, the two dots. Yeah, great. And then we just want to take all of these and put them in there, right? And so just take your fishing idling animations, say animated sprite.play fishing idle,
Then we
right?
also need like for, all the directions.
If you want all the different directions,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or I guess another way you could do it. You could either just take the 4 directions and put it in here, or inside each of these you could check to see if you're fishing, and then if you are fishing, play it here. Otherwise, play it. You know what I mean?
The vector.
Yeah, it's kind of one way or the other. I would say just take all this, copy and paste it, and put it into here, but change these to
okay.
fishing. Yeah.
And what about that finish fishing?
Finishing. Well, then you need a whole. Then you have to
We
figure out
also
what makes
have
you
a-
catch a fish, right? Like.
Yeah.
So first do this part, and then let's figure out that next
Okay.
part. Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Professor,
Yeah. What's up?
I got a question about saving the files.
Yeah.
I can never, so, for example, I just for example, I just make like really brief structure.
Yeah, look.
But like, how can I save this into my GitHub? 'Cause, I tried
So,
a couple
go to
of
GitHub?
times. Yeah.
So right, this is a history tab. This is everything that you've done in the past. Now click on the changes tab, and you'll see that
This one
is this the project?
No, this is from your demo. I just do it based on your demo. So.
Okay. So
Is
then
there a
where
way kind of save it like from that
from one project and bring it to another project?
Yeah.
The way you would do that is go to the Gado project, right? And so then just right click on the, like hit open files or whatever, show in file manager. Open in file manager. Right, so this is the file of this Gado project, whatever you're doing. Whatever scenes that you want to bring in, like your, yeah, so you probably want to bring in your assets, because you have the tiles, and then maybe like the, what scenes are you using? Maybe the rat scene or the
I just click this and then change the names.
uh-huh.
And what about I just drag everything?
You could drag everything in, but then you're gonna have a bunch of stuff in your theme that might be things you don't want.
Yeah, like remove, right?
Yeah, it would remove things. The only thing you don't want to bring in don't bring in this project.auto file, right? This has to say, if there's two project.auto files in one project, you'll get confused. So just bring in everything else. Bring in the assets.
Wait.
I mean, it seems like you're using the. Hang in there. You guys are doing great.
Yeah.
It's tough, right?
For example, here, right?
Yeah,
I said like drag files. And then
Oh no! You never want to do. We don't want to do add files to a repository online. I mean, you can do it that way, but it's a lot more of a pain in the neck, right?
Oh.
We want to open it in GitHub Desktop. So let's use the desktop app. And is this this looks like the project repository, is this right?
Yes.
So let's fetch it and see if there's any new changes. Okay, now click, you can do Command Shift F, is a nice shortcut. This opens up this folder, right? So just drag them from this folder into this folder.
And it's supposed to work. I did this morning, like for example.
Yeah, and then maybe the last thing you need to do is then commit and push them. You know what I mean? So let's go back to GitHub now.
Like here is okay.
So we brought it here, now go over here. You'll see we just added them over here. So this is almost ready. You just need to commit it. So say like I added assets. Yeah, and actually this is the one that's required. Sorry.
That's like a node, right?
Yeah. And then hit commit to main, and then push to origin. And that's putting it online. And so now if you're on a different computer, or if your group mates want to get those things, they just need to fetch, and it'll download that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the thing is that he pushed the two thing into the file, and I didn't.
我没点这个。
你没有点这个，你怎么传上去呢？
It's a learning process. It's a learning process. We're all
我是那个
figuring it out together, you know?
我是在这里传的。
你在这里传的？哎呦，我是大姐，我请问了。
I'm glad you guys figured it out, you know?
Sorry, one more thing for
Yeah.
my dinner.
Yeah, sure. Let me just stop streaming because I don't need to have you guys yelling at each other.